You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Marketing Monday. I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI. And ABCI's mission is
to help all you folks out there sell more products and services in the aviation world.
Absolutely. And the reason that we say that every single time is because we have to remind ourselves, we tend to go off in all kinds of directions if we don't remember what it is that we do. A lot of people ask us questions and things like that, and we have to think about when people ask us questions, is this in our purview?
Well, not only that, but you never know if somebody's watching it for the first time.
Absolutely. So it reminds you and it reminds us, what is it that we're here for? And, the most common question that we get asked is one that I've kind of struggled with. Is this in our purview or is this not? And today I've kind of decided to give in to temptation for a couple of reasons, and I can rationalize it any way I want to. But mostly I feel like if there is a need out there, we really should address it. And the question that I get asked most often, and I think the question you get asked most often as well, is how do I get a job in the aviation industry, or can you help me get a job in the aviation industry, right?
True.
Which is kind of strange. I kind of want to ask people, well, do you know that we're a marketing company? We're not an airline. We can't, put you to work flying or, any of those kinds of things. But since there is a need out there, and since there are people asking the question, we really should answer it, and we really can't take the time with every individual person. And of course, we're not going to answer it in 10 minutes today, but what we want to do is give you a framework of how to answer that question for yourself, right?
Exactly.
All right. So, first of all, I think it's really important that we do answer this question. This is the part where I rationalize, right? Because we need to have more people in the industry. I mean, to have a healthy aviation industry, of course, everybody knows that there is a pilot shortage. I think that's been fairly widely reported and is generally common knowledge that there are parts of the industry that are really suffering from a lack of people, right?
Not just pilots. It's getting to where they're realizing they don't have any new mechanics coming in the system either.
Absolutely. So, it's really important, I think, and also it's getting really, really hard for young people to get into the industry the way that we did, which is hanging out at the airport, or the way that you did for sure.
Yep.
You
just don't do that anymore.
Right. Be an airport bum and wash airplanes and...
Yeah, well, the rules have changed. I mean, I used to wash airplanes, and I started charging $20 so I could save up for flight time. And then I got to know the people at the airport, and I'd wash their airplanes. They'd say, throw me the keys and say, just take it around the pattern and dry it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back in those days, I didn't get a check out in any of those airplanes. I knew what the gauges said, and the markings were on the gauges, and they were all single engine, twin here and there. Just go do it.
Exactly. But the problem is, these days with all of the airport security and other kinds of things, it's really hard for young people to get into the industry in the same way. And so, that's kind of why they're using social media and why they're asking these questions, whether or not they're out of high school, whether or not they're qualified yet, a lot of different things that we need to go through to really understand how to help them, and it's really not our forte. But there are a lot of jobs in aviation. Just about any job that you can think of outside of aviation, there's an equivalent version in the industry, right?
Plus.
Right, and that includes chefs, doctors, mechanics, nurses, dispatchers, office folks, accountants, salespeople, marketing people, of course.
Right.
Construction people,
And there's a regulatory
engineers.
side that works in the government, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. So there's lots and lots of opportunity in the aviation industry, and a lot of it is really, really badly needed. But, so there's really two big ideas that I want to share with you if this is you. If you're looking for a job in the aviation industry, the two big ideas, we usually share three big ideas, but this time there's really two. One is to get really qualified, right?
In whatever area you choose.
Exactly. And then the second is to market yourself. And this is the part where we are qualified, right?
Yes, and able to help.
And able to help, exactly. So let's talk about this. We put together a monster decision tree that is probably impossible to read on your screen, but don't worry, we'll drill down to the details here, and we'll share the big decision tree in the comments after this session. But the first question you need to ask yourself if you're looking for a job in aviation, and this is the part where I can't sit down with every person that asks me this and walk through this whole thing, and I'm really not the best person to do that either, and we'll talk about that also when we get down to the details of who is the best person to talk to depending on what you're trying to do, right? Okay, so the first question is, are you qualified for the job that you want,
And based on a decision tree, you decide yes or no.
Or I don't know, in which case you're going to go down the no path, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So if you are qualified, then it's really just a matter of marketing your qualifications to the right people. If you are not qualified, then there's no magic here. You are not going to get a job that you're not qualified for, right?
That's right.
Okay. No matter how bad you want it, this is not the law of abundance or whatever. You can't just manifest yourself into a job.
It's not like Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Just because he wants it more doesn't mean he can get it.
Exactly. So if you are qualified, let's talk about that side of the decision tree first. So this is the bit where you actually are marketing your skills, right? You already have the skills. You've got the degrees that's called for. You've got whatever it's requiring in the job description that you're looking at, and you're probably looking at a lot of job descriptions, so you have a clue, what's necessary and what's optional and what's desired and so on. So the question here is, do you know a lot of people in the part of the industry that you want to work in? And if the answer is no, then you need to ask yourself, are you good at networking, right?
Yep.
Okay. If the answer is yes, then do you know enough people at the company that you want to work for? And we really recommend that people make a top 10 list when they're doing marketing of, these are the companies that I want as clients. And you want to do the same thing if you're looking for a job. Maybe make a list of the top 10 companies you'd want to work for. Depending on the job that you want and the reputation of that company and the research that you've done. And so do you know enough people at maybe those 10 companies, or maybe there's only 3, or maybe there's only 1, right? Depending on what job you're looking for.
It doesn't really matter. You still have the same issue.
Exactly. All right. So if you know enough people in the company, then are you getting interviews? Okay. If you know enough people and they know you and they know that you're qualified, chances are they're calling you, right?
Nowadays, that's absolutely true.
Right. And if that is not true, it's probably because you are not great at networking, either online or in person, right? Because otherwise they would know that you're qualified and they know.
Yeah, if they don't know, there's no magic. You have to help them know.
Exactly. So, you know lots of people at the company, you're getting interviews. If you're getting interviews, then that's great. How are the interviews going? If they're going great, congratulations. And it's just a matter of time before you find the right fit, or you find the right opportunity, or, the budget happens, or, whatever needs to happen. And sometimes you have to wait a while because things don't happen quickly in the aviation industry typically.
No, they don't. Not even the hiring piece.
Yeah. So in a lot of cases, you may have, background checks and crazy stuff that has to happen that takes a while, and you may have 3, 4, 5 interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not unusual. So if the interviews are going well, then congratulations, stay the course. It's just a matter of time and money. Well, time and money. Time and energy, really, to hold out until that job becomes available. And if you do need to do something for money in the meantime, you do it, right?
Of course.
Absolutely. Okay. If those interviews are not going well, then you want to think about maybe an interview prep course or something along those lines. If you are not getting interviews at all, you probably want to think about personal branding. And what I mean by personal branding, you're going to hear a lot more about in January. And we're actually working up a little bit of a surprise with Bené Wilson. She's really fantastic. And she's one of those people that is really good at mentoring people and is part of a bunch of different mentoring groups and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that, and we'll have more information about that later. But so that's all assuming that you're qualified. Just follow that side of the decision tree and you should be fine. But what if you're not qualified?
Well, then you need to get qualified.
Right. Once again, there's no magic here. In fact, most companies are legally required to have certain qualifications in place that you've met, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, so it doesn't matter how much they like you. It doesn't matter anything like that. What matters is if you meet the qualifications of whatever program they have. Now, that said, some of the airlines are actually hiring people who maybe are not qualified to be pilots yet. They have programs where they're actually putting them through the type rating program or part of their school or other things. And if that's the case, you just need to qualify for that opening, whatever it is that they're wanting from you.
Exactly.
All right, so the next question is, do you want to be a pilot? Which is really kind of the iconic career in aviation, and everybody's been hearing a whole lot about the pilot shortage. If you want to be a pilot and you are not qualified yet, and then the next question is, do you have funding? Basically, do you have the means to get the training that you need? If the answer is yes, that's great. You probably still want to get some direction and some mentorship and some thought put into that. And there are some folks at Airline Pilot Gateway, Fred Matfeld and David Santo, are the very best people we know to talk to if you want to be a pilot, because they know all the airlines, they know who's hiring, they know what they're looking for. They also know a lot of the different schools. They visit a lot of schools, and they know which programs are best and worst for different situations. So, they're all different, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So that's thing number one. If you don't have funding, then you might want to consider a different career. That's just the hard answer. It's not probably the answer that you want, but there it is. We're not going to sugarcoat things and tell you that things are true that are not. The reality is, if you want to be a doctor, you have to have done all of those requirements to, nobody's going to let you in and start operating on people without being qualified. If you want to be a pilot, you've got to get trained, and that training costs money, and, there's really no way around that, right?
No, there's not. Attorneys, business leaders, they all go to school.
Exactly, and that's true of all of the other professions in the aviation industry. Whatever you want to be, you need to be the best one you can. And get qualified before you start doing a whole lot of networking, because the folks in this industry, there's not a whole lot of them that have a lot of patience and time to be spending with you if you are, completely not qualified. They'll be much more interested in talking with you after you've completed a training program and meet the requirements that they're after.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Which is not to say they're not nice people, but they just don't have a lot of time, right, to walk through that with you. So you want to go through some of those programs that can get you a mentor, like Airline Pilot Gateway for pilots. If you want to go into private aviation, NBAA has a fantastic mentorship program that just started last year, I think, called YoPros. I've been seeing a lot of their posts, and they have a private Facebook group that you can join and see if you can find a mentor in that way. So there's lots of things that you can do, and there's a lot of folks that are, I think, really interested in helping young people these days get into aviation, because we know it's going to take some work to keep it going, right?
And it's quite a bit of time. Once you decide, there's a lot of things. If you've done nothing, there's a lot of things that have to be done.
Yeah, some of these things do take some time and some money, and there's just no way around that. So once again, two big ideas: get really qualified, right? And number two is market yourself. And if you've been watching our podcasts and things like that, you know a lot about marketing. So you should be, miles ahead of other people who aren't thinking in terms of how to position themselves, how to present themselves, those kinds of things.
Yep.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay. So once again, there are lots of jobs in aviation, and, if you are a enthusiastic young person, Don't be put off by the fact that people don't have a lot of time for you. Sometimes you just have to be the one to make those decisions and to get it rolling and to get it moving, right?
Don't have to be a young person.
Yep, that's true.
You can have a career already and decide to go and fly for the airlines or anywhere else.
That's true, yeah. I mean, there are so many people that are changing careers these days in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There's no reason that you can't
No,
get
in
in
your
at any
60s,
time.
you're not going to fly for the airlines unless you are 60, because then you got 5 years worth. But you can fly in Part 91.
That is true. And, like we said, being a pilot isn't the only thing to do here. In fact, some of us, or you anyway, that used to fly every day, now you kind of use other parts of the business as your means to be able to fly, right?
Yes. Now I fly when and where I want.
Absolutely, which is more fun, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So thanks for joining us. We're really glad that you were here. And if you do have comments or anything to add, and especially if you have advice for young people who are getting into the industry, do leave it in the comments, because I think this is a conversation that we really do need to start having, right?
Yep.
Thanks for joining us for Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the best place to learn what really works in sales and marketing in the aviation industry. Remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating.
You know you could.